Sometimes I'd have to bring you down to earth too. I know this verse hurts you. I tell you what, I give you advice. I'm feeling nice. Your vices could influence your writing if you weren't biting.
Today on 3 Count Commentaries with your host, MagMongoSlade, today we're going to talk about AEW and the downslide in business. How everything is not looking very good for AEW at the moment, and how they could possibly turn things around. So there were 3 comments that led me to this point. Comment 1 was the admission by Dave Meltzer that AEW is not doing very well. He said on his radio show, "They are cold. Boy, are they cold." And how to change that? Man, that's hard to do. Edge was there at Collision last night, and it didn't move a lot of tickets. Edge is a good performer, and he's a good talker and everything like that, but it's not Punk as far as a game changer. Okay, that's one of them. The second, it was Eric Bischoff, who responded to Meltzer's comment by saying, "How about learning how to create legitimate story arcs, format television, and develop compelling characters? You won't get the Dirt Sheet Booker of the Year award, but you might actually grow your audience." So that was actually pretty brutal. But this one is the one that actually got me thinking. This is from a guy who is a wrestling YouTuber on Twitter, and he was pretty agitated about everybody telling Tony Khan what to do, which is what I'm going to do here. He says 99% of the criticism directed at AEW and WWE too, but mostly AEW, don't come from people who want them to get better or improve the issues they may have. It comes from people who don't want them to get better and want the issues to get worse. It's painfully easy to spot. They disguise it under language like, quote, Tony Khan should do this or Tony Khan should do that, but they don't want Tony Khan to do shit. This AEW cold spell that we are currently witnessing is nothing more than whack-off material for these people. Here's the truth. AEW created a lot of its own animosity. It created a lot of its own problems because it was born out of tribalism. It's the exact same thing that happened to TNA, the exact same thing that happened to Ring of Honor. It happens. These companies are born out of people's frustrations with the WWE, and then the WWE changes, or things get better, and then people forget that the other company exists, or WWE just chugs and chugs and chugs along, and then they finally hit something, and all of a sudden, now people are paying attention to that. WWE just put out a press release talking about how this fast lane is the most seen fast lane in the history of fast lanes, and how they just made so much money in Indianapolis. And here is, various people online saying that they haven't sold, they being AEW, have not sold 3,000 tickets for Dynamite yet, as of recording. Now, maybe when the show actually happens, it will occur, but it was under 3,000 for Collision. It's apparently going to be under 3,000 people for Dynamite as well. And there's pictures of the big empty buildings at Collision. And my thing is, if you're Tony Khan will never hear this. He probably didn't pay this no attention. But those empty seats, that's a message, right? You're doing something wrong. What are the empty seats trying to tell you? The empty seats are telling you that you're doing something wrong. You can't keep going about pretending like everything's all good when you have over half the building is empty. You're doing something wrong, okay? So the first part of actually fixing the problem is admitting that there is a problem. Your ratings are down. Your buildings are half empty. How do you turn this around? Well, Eric Bischoff has a good point. Compelling characters and story arcs, etc. But there's little things that Tony Khan can do pretty much immediately that will help. Now, number one with the bullet is his over-reliance on the elite. I know that they're the logos, they're the guys you name the company after, but again, look at your merchandise. Is any of those guys in your top 5 or 10 merchandise movers? Do any of them move tickets? When it comes to Kenny Omega, probably. There's plenty of guys who come and go out of AEW. CM Punk was one of them. Edge is another one. Who want to wrestle Kenny Omega and who the average person would be interested in watching Kenny Omega wrestle. Kenny Omega is the one person out of the Elite who is still a draw, somewhat, for your company. The Young Bucks, you need to start moving them aside. I know that's going to be an agitation to the Elite audience, but you have to realize that enough is enough. They don't get the pops that they used to. A lot of the damage that took place with the Elite and CM Punk has pretty much tainted their image. You needed to have new guys step up. So you need new stars. That's number one with a bullet. You need new stars. Yes, you've got MJF, but you need more, okay? You need to do more. You need to feature more people. You have seasoned talent, and I say this pretty much every review: Malachi Black, Miro, Andrade, people who are a little bit older, they're in their 30s, but they haven't gotten a top-tier run yet. Yes, MJF being one of your top guys, and he draws ratings for you, that's excellent. But the problem is, MJF alone is not going to be able to carry your company. You need to have people for him to work with. Right now, Tony Khan is putting MJF in 20-minute segments because he doesn't have anyone else that he can trust to draw interest on his show. So MJF has to ramble and crack jokes for 20 minutes. And look, no matter how much people like MJF, only so much of it is going to stick. Only so much is going to happen before people get tired of him too. So you can't treat him like hot sauce and put him on everything. He has to be able to work with somebody. So you have to create somebody for him to work with. I mean, you had a perfect polar opposite right there with Ricky Starks. Why you just didn't continue to go with that, I don't know. But that's something you need to consider, is that you need to apply some pressure. This is another thing that WWE does very well to their guys, is they are under constant pressure of being replaced, of being released. Guys have gotten way too comfortable in AEW. Guys don't produce nothing. I know Tony Khan wants to be, if I was a wrestler, I would want to work for Tony Khan. He doesn't ask anything extra out of you, and he's the nicest guy on earth. But at the same time, when you create the kind of workplace where there is no pressure, then people just will hit their level of mediocrity and just stay there. And then certain people who actually come along and start to excel, if they don't start seeing forward momentum, then you start getting what MJF was getting, what Ricky Starks was getting. What happened with Jade Cargill is they'd start to look elsewhere. And it's literally that simple. Ricky Starks started to complain that his career has stalled. The stop-start pushing, the promos here and there, he would get focused on, then they move away from him. And he started talking about leaving. Now he's a tag team champion. Hopefully that's good enough. At least you better hope that's good enough. Of course, it's not always money. It's sometimes creative. MJF was a similar situation, except for that situation was money. He was overproducing, he was drawing, and he wasn't being paid enough. Tony Khan jumped in, gave him the money that he was looking for. Still hasn't re-signed him to a contract, at least I don't think he has. But he was able to placate MJF enough that he feels comfortable coming to work, and he hasn't caused any disruptions in a while. So you've got two issues there. But for other people who are just happy to show up and get paid and do nothing, you need to feel more comfortable getting rid of those people and replacing them. This is a business. It is not a kindergarten. These are not latchkey kids just hanging around. All right? These people who don't produce anything on your show, get rid of them. I know that goes against everything Tony Khan believes, because he would die for everybody on the roster and all that nonsense. You run football teams. You run a soccer team. If a guy does not perform, you cut him. So for these people who have been on this roster 4 or 5 years and they don't produce anything, these Butcher and the Blaze, the Kip Sabians, all these people, get rid of them. Just get rid of them. They're useless. they are actually a detriment to your product. Believe it or not, when people see these guys, they turn the channel immediately. Or they already know whatever they're about to look at is not important. I can tell you 100%, if Kip Sabian is on my television, I do not need to watch it. And you've taught me that because you didn't do anything with him for 4 years. So you can even say, hey, look, it's my fault. Sometimes it's Vince's fault. A guy like Dolph Ziggler, for the last 3 or 4 years, people know if Dolph's on TV, nothing's important is going to happen. They finally smartened up and got rid of him. Now, I'm not saying I don't like Dolph Ziggler. I do. But I had been trained that when he's on television, nothing is important is going to happen. So he's got to go. And now he's gone. Now he's more interesting because it's like, okay, well, what is he going to do next? These guys, these Dark Order guys, these best friends guys, they add nothing to your product. There are so many people in AEW that literally add nothing to the product. Tony Khan has to get a spine and get rid of them. Start over from scratch. You don't owe anybody anything. If you've been paying them on time since they've been there, you don't owe them jack shit. Fire them. I don't care if it's 15 to 20 of them. Replace them. There's hundreds of thousands of wrestlers out there. Get somebody you can trust, whether it's Jim Ross or somebody else backstage, to go and replenish your roster. It's about that time. Some of the guys you thought were, hey, this guy might be something, he turns out he's nothing. Get rid of him. There's some people in Ring of Honor that probably shouldn't be down there. All right? And some of them probably should, but you might want to give them the opportunity to bring them up. Again, apply some pressure. Yes, some guys are young. You might... Look, one of the things that Tony Khan actually was doing was putting guys like Wheeler Yuta in the main event. Putting guys like Daniel Garcia in the main event. And we questioned that. We said, why is he doing that? But it was a positive because he was applying pressure. He was showing these guys upward momentum. If you guys can perform, I will bring you up here. Some of these guys met the challenge. Some of them didn't. Nice try. Wrestling is all about trying as an art form. You never know what's going to stick. You never know what's going to flop. Give it a try. There's got to be some people in Ring of Honor who you could say, if I bring him up, people don't know whether I'm going to push him or not. They might not change the channel. Guarantee you put Butcher and the Blade on television, people will change the channel. Guarantee you the Dark Order shows up on television, people are changing the channel. There's no saving them. All right? Get rid of them. Replenish your roster. AAA, New Japan, GCW, Hog, Impact, they all have talent that you can poach from. The lower levels of WWE all have talent you can poach from and replenish your roster. That's one of the problems that you got there. Your main issue, however, is you need to start going for what's mainstream and cool and not going for what's niche. Case in point, Tony Khan keeps building pay-per-views around guys like Will Ospreay and guys like Zack Sabre Jr. Look, on Twitter, they keep having this discussion, whether Will Ospreay is a better wrestler than Seth Rollins. I don't want to have that conversation. It's all subjective anyway. I will say this. All of these people who are on Twitter, very loud and ignorant about how Seth Rollins sucks, I'll say this. Seth Rollins main event a pay-per-view, the building is full. Will Ospreay main events a pay-per-view in America, is the building full? That's my question. Is when Will Ospreay's name is mentioned, does the building fill up? This is a business. All right? Again, it's a business. If Will Ospreay, having him on the roster, does not fill your building, then who cares if he's a better wrestler than Seth Rollins? He's not doing his job. The point of this thing is to make money. AEW was built off of trying to really hone in on that niche audience. Super serving that niche audience. Those people who think Zack Sabre Jr. is the absolute tits of pro wrestling. Most people Again, don't know who he is, don't care who he is. And then if they see him, they're going to want to know what's his gimmick. And if you can't explain to them what his gimmick is or why he's interesting, they're not going to watch it. It's literally that simple. This is a business of capturing eyeballs. Zack Sabre Jr. does not pass the eyeball test. He does not look like anything. And you can't explain to who he is to anybody in a short amount of time that's going to excite them. There is a contingent of wrestling fans that exists on Twitter and in some spaces of YouTube where they think, oh, how do you get somebody into wrestling? Here, show them 45 minutes of Kazuchika Okada versus Kenny Omega. And I tell people all the time, you're asking people to invest 45 minutes to an hour in something they don't like already, or something they don't care about. I have gotten more people interested in wrestling from watching goofy WWE shit, whether it's Santino Marella with the Cobra, or whether it's New Day swiveling their hips. People get it, for starters, it's short. 30 seconds, 40 seconds. If you don't like it, you didn't lose anything. You didn't even lose a minute out of your life. If somebody hates wrestling or they think wrestling is stupid, why are they going to invest 40 minutes into one match? Why? You have to already like these people in order to invest that kind of time into it. You're appealing to a niche audience. Yes, WWE can be annoying by trying to turn everything into a TikTok or trying to turn everything into a short video, having these ridiculously short matches and all this kind of stuff. At the same time, though, they are constantly being seen as being fresh and new and always trying different stuff. You know, when Cody Rhodes was in AEW, they were doing stuff with celebrities. That completely stopped cold when Cody left. AEW has tried to do nothing with any celebrities. You know, there was a time when they were spending money on Mike Tyson and Shaq, and they had Rosario Dawson, and there's different celebrities coming to the shows. And if you learned anything from WCW, that helps. If you get certain celebrities, select celebrities, of course, and you get them involved in your product, and they're doing something interesting, they can reach beyond the niche audience and drag in some other people. If you're afraid to do that, then just be happy with your niche audience and your half-empty buildings. I'm not saying this stuff because I say this stuff every week, pretty much. My thing is, I don't want AEW to go out of business. The reason why I don't want them to go out of business is because it's always better for there to be more than one place to work. Yes, the WWE is the NFL, it's the NBA. You're never going to top that. Part of the reason AEW is going to lose some guys to WWE is because AEW does not have that, this is my dream job. You know, I want to main event WrestleMania. There's no way you could compete with that imagination. You can't compete with hitting the home run at the World Series or catching the game-winning touchdown at the Super Bowl. You cannot compete with that. You cannot compete with, this is the main event of WrestleMania. I know there's a lot of delusional wrestling fans who will keep telling you, oh, this is just as big, this is just as important. And every single time they get proven wrong. The one time they were actually very close was All In at Wembley Stadium. They were very close to saying, hey, this is sort of WrestleMania level right here. There's 60 plus thousand people in this arena or this stadium or whatever. They were very close. But ultimately, 2 weeks after Wembley, the buildings were half empty again. How could that be? Ratings went down again. People thought 60,000 people in a building, you were hot, you're on fire. Turns out you weren't. It was all smoke and mirrors. It was because this was your first foray over into England. Let's see if you do it again. And I'm not going to be one of those people that say they can't do it again. They might be able to. My overall picture here is you did it over there. Now you're struggling to do 5% of that audience over here. Now, 5% of 60,000 is about what, 3,000? Thereabouts? I started this video by saying they couldn't sell 3,000 tickets, right? So You can't even do 5% or 6% of Wembley less than 3 months after. How could it? Something's going wrong. Something has gone wrong. The CM Punk fiasco did a lot of damage to AEW. It did a lot of damage to their image. It did a lot of damage to Tony. It did a lot of damage to the locker room. It's going to take some time to massage all of that out to get people to get over it. It's still kind of fresh in people's minds. They're still talking about it. And they're going to talk about it until, they get some kind of closure from the scenario. And that did a lot of damage to AEW. And if we're being honest, the company was doing fine before CM Punk got there. There was a lot of energy around the product. Danielson had just come in. Cole had just come in. There was a lot of juice behind AEW. It was putting a fresh coat of paint on guys we've seen for a while, but it was also putting indie guys back in their own environment, where all they had to do was wrestle matches, and 5-star matches were good enough. If you just have your 5-star match, nothing else matters. And soon, the people who were interests were piqued, like, oh, this is different. What's going to happen here? He's going to wrestle matches. Okay, what else is he going to do? Wrestle matches. Okay, and wrestle more matches. And the matches are going to keep getting longer. 1 hour here, 40 minutes there. Oh, that's a lot of time. We're dedicating to a lot of matches. So here it is, 2 years later, and you say, what has Danielson done? Well, he had a lot of good matches. I just said it. People don't care about his hour-long match with Kenny Omega. They're not going to sit and watch that. They don't care that he had an hour-long match with Hangman Page. They're not going to sit and watch it. What else did he do? What did you do with Adam Cole except he spent most of that time injured for one reason or another? And it takes me back to guys that you've had on your roster like Andrade, like Miro, like Malachi Black, who you had on your roster for 3 years. And then you have to ask, for those 3 years that you've had them on your roster, or 2 years, however, what have you done with them? What memories have you created with them? Why are people still posting Malachi Black clips from NXT and he's been on your roster all this time? Why are people still, reminiscing about Rusev Day and he's on your roster? This is what, really kind of throws me for a loop. Like, you actually have this guy. And these people are reminiscing about, when he was in NXT or when he was wrestling John Cena or whatever. You can't compete with the names, but you can compete in terms of creating different moments, new moments. Like the Miro thing, crazy to me. You started a storyline between him and his wife, and it's been 3 or 4 weeks. We haven't seen either one of them. What is going on? Why is that happening? Again, not utilizing the talent that you have. Yes, it's nice to have a guy like Chris Jericho. You can't rely on Chris Jericho anymore. You're 4 years in. You got to do something else. Same thing with Moxley. Is Moxley a nice talent for you to have? Yes, but does Moxley in 2023 mean just as much as Moxley in 2019? No, he doesn't. He's 4 years older. The audience have seen everything that he can do now. It's time to go somewhere else with it. It's time to move the ball, to pass the baton to someone else. The Elite, Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho. It's time to start moving all of those guys who were main event stars in 2019. They need to be making the new guys. That's what their job should be. I'm not saying they should be going out there doing jobs, but what I'm saying is they should be out there in feuds, really pushing the new guys forward. That's why the Danielson Starks thing was pretty good. Not just because Danielson could have good matches with Ricky Starks, but because it was Ricky Starks having an opportunity to break through the glass ceiling and do something more. And I know a lot of AEW fans will say, well, Tony is trying. Look what he's trying to do something with Swerve. He's trying to do something with Ricky Starks. He's trying, and not everybody's good enough. Like he tried with Wheeler Yuta. He tried with Daniel Garcia. Sometimes these things don't work. He tries with Sammy Guevara. It just doesn't work. I get it. You try and you fail, but you keep trying. You can't keep falling back on the Elite, Moxley, Danielson, Cole, MJF. It's the same guys for the last 4 or 5 years. It's time to make a concerted effort, like a real effort, at creating new stars. Even Orange Cassidy, that really long angle that Orange Cassidy had when he was the champion all that time, that should have been used to put over somebody new rather than put over Moxley. Imagine if he would have beaten Moxley and would have turned around and lost to Swerve or lost to Ricky Starks. Then that guy would have been made. Orange Cassidy is a guy who was on the roster from the beginning. To your audience, he's already over. To some of the mainstream people who have seen it, who probably enjoyed it and watched it, he's already over. If you'd have used him to get somebody else over, then you would have a new star. Instead, that title is now floundering. Okay? The TNT title, now it's on Christian. Well, we've seen Christian on TV for 25 years. Nothing against Christian. Nothing at all against Christian. I love Christian. But he's been on TV for 25 years. I'm sorry. There's nothing Christian can do with the title that he can't do without it. Use that belt to get somebody else over. All right? Christian's story does not need the TNT title. At least not right now. And the young guys that you do finally get over, you need to learn how to maximize what they're doing. The Acclaimed. You get the Acclaimed over. They're selling a bunch of t-shirts and stuff like that. People are scissoring me, yada, yada, yada. All right. But now you have to maintain that momentum. How do you maintain that momentum? By putting them in match after match after match after match after match. No, that's not how you do it. You have to create compelling storylines, compelling characters. This goes back to what Bischoff was talking about. You can't have random heel turns and thinking that's interesting, especially when you don't follow it up immediately. You know, it takes 6 days before Nick Wayne explains why he turned heel instead of explaining it immediately. You know, in terms of the very next episode, we built around why Nick Wayne turned heel, or, you know, whatever new development is taking place in a storyline. That's the kind of stuff that you actually need to do. And that's just the creative that you can fix on television. There's a lot of other things that you probably need to do, like work on your marketing and your promotions. You know, what kind of wrestlers are doing media in a town that you go into? Are you even having your wrestlers do media? Because the wrestlers do media for Grand Slam, they just like they did wrestling media for Wembley. Ticket sales were decent, but you're going into Toledo, Ohio. You need to get some people to do media, right? You need to get people to talk to the radio stations, go out and go on television, all this kind of stuff. You need to really book your talent out. If you're not going to do that, then you can't make them stars. People can't see them. Then you're only going to trust the people who watch TV to show up on a night where they got to go to work the next night to watch your wrestling show. Okay? And a lot of people are not going to do that. You know? So it's interesting, but I don't want AEW to go under. I want them to at least be a strong number 2. And it's not going to work unless you're willing to take chances, move away from some of your crusty guys at the top who are not reinventing themselves or doing anything different. I mean, you may even get, if you got this far into this video, you may say, well, Seth Rollins has been on top since 2015. Okay, but how many times have they reinvigorated Seth Rollins? They keep changing his character, keep giving him new gimmicks, new persona. Roman Reigns has been on top since, 2012 or something like that? But he's having the hottest run ever right now. New persona, new look, new promo style, entirely different stuff. This is what WWE does better than everybody. They apply pressure to these guys and force them to change, shake things up, do things that are different. And that's how you stay on top. Nobody complains if you keep doing something different and you're shaking things up. If you're not, though, you get stale. And when you get stale, you get cold. And then You wonder what all the empty seats are telling you. They're telling you that you're doing something wrong. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later.
Tell me what's worse than learning all that you led to believe was all horse crap. They just